This is the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast.
All right, well, let's dig into this chapter, because these are some exciting chapters. I think we
it's a little peak Darth Rand, or nadir Darth Rand, I guess one could say.
Yeah, this is... I almost want to go, like, deeper than Darth Rand, because Darth Rand was like, I need to be hard, I'm mean to everybody. This is truly just like evil Rand, right? This is like evil Rand doppelganger.
Well, this is the descent into that, right? This is when he goes from Steel to Quendiar. This is the last that could be done. But yeah, maybe this is the end of Darth Rand and the beginning of something even worse.
Because I feel like Darth Rand, there is some, like, he's redeemed at the end in the same way that Darth Vader was.
I mean, I've always just assumed Darth Rand was his end state, but, maybe there's another fandom we can bring in as an analogy.
I'm just saying, we've been calling Rand up to this point Darth Rand, and now he transitions into something else.
No, maybe we were applying the title too early.
Yeah, because we were kind of thinking from, like, when he got his hand burned off.
No, I've been calling him Darth Rand since the box.
Oh, yeah, that's fair. Emperor Rand. He's been Emperor Rand for a while.
Yeah, he was Emperor Rand up until the box, and then after the box, I think of him as Darth Rand. But, this is such an important transition. It's kind of like we really should have slightly more other fandom crossover gradations.
Mm-hmm. Let's call him the Senate.
Sure. But yeah, this is the last that could be done, and its immediate fallout. We're doing 2 chapters today, but it really is just one event, just with a POV switch to Cadsuane at the end.
Right, yeah, it's a short chapter, and there's already a POV switch here in the beginning. I don't understand why that didn't just get crunched together into one chapter. So this one definitely makes sense to do all together.
Yeah, for sure. And there's a lot of it's an action scene, but there's also questions that I have about plot things that I don't know if are answered. So hopefully we'll have more than an hour's worth of content at the end of this.
Mm-hmm. I actually do have quite a bit of things I can say and some questions to ask and some things to tangent on. So I think we'll go for a while on this one.
All right. Well, I guess it's my read-in because it's Semirhage.
Yeah, you get Semirhage, yeah.
It's kind of a long read-in because we don't get to be in her head very often, and this is our last chance, so we're going to savor it. Today we're doing, to start with, Chapter 22, the last that could be done, and the symbol is the Forsnaken, even though it's more of a...
the Forsnaken.
Yeah, it's a snake, and there's 4 loops on it, so it's a Forsnaken.
And it does usually represent Forsaken in a chapter. It is a Forsaken symbol.
Yep. Semirhage sat alone in the small room. They had taken away her chair and given her no lantern or candle. Blast this cursed age and its cursed people. What she would have given for glow bulbs on the walls. During her days, prisoners hadn't been denied light. Of course, she had locked several of her experiments away in total darkness, but that was different. It had been important to discover what effect the lack of light would have on them. These so-called Aes Sedai who held her, they had no rational reason for leaving her in darkness. They just did it to humiliate her. She pulled her arms closer, huddling against the wooden wall. She did not cry. She was of the Chosen. So what if she had been forced to abase herself? She was not broken. But the fool Aes Sedai no longer regarded her as they had. Semirhage hadn't changed, but they had. Somehow, in one swoop, that cursed woman with the paralysis net in her hair had unraveled Semirhage's authority with the entire lot of them. How? How had she lost control so quickly? She shuddered as she remembered being turned over the woman's knees and spanked. And the nonchalance of it. The only emotion in the woman's voice had been a slight annoyance. She treated Semirhage, one of the Chosen, as if she were barely worthy of notice. That had galled more than the blows. It would not happen again. Semirhage would be ready for the blows next time, and she would give them no weight. Yes, that would work. Wouldn't it? She shuddered again. She had tortured hundreds, perhaps thousands, in the name of understanding and reason. Torture made sense. You truly saw what a person was made of, in more ways than one, when you began to slice into them. That was a phrase she'd used on numerous occasions. It usually made her smile. This time it did not. Why couldn't they have given her pain? broken fingers, cuts into her flesh, coals in the pits of her elbows. She had steeled her mind to each of these things, preparing for them. A small, eager part of herself had looked forward to them. But this? Being forced to eat food off the floor? Being treated like a child in front of those who had regarded her with such awe? I will kill her, she thought, not for the first time. I will remove her tendons, one at a time, using the power to heal her so that she lives to experience the pain. No, I'll do something new to her. I'll show her agony that hasn't been known to anyone in any age. Semirhage. A whisper. I like that. I like the whole bit of her crying to herself and thinking about all her thoughts, and then it just Semirhage.
You know how you get a little creeped out when I read crazy male characters and evil winds and stuff like that? That was a little too good for Semirhage. A little too zealous in the right spots. A little too, yeah. I'm going to avoid any dungeons with you in the future. I'm afraid you'd be like, see what you're made of twice.
Slice into you. Torture makes sense. I've always said it. I've always said it.
I've heard, people have been saying that you've always said it.
Yeah, and Nentok is right. I would invite you to a cave, not a dungeon.
That's
Obviously.
But, the cave would have chains, right? Like, at that point, is it a dungeon? Is it a cave? Yeah, like...
That's true. And if you have to spelunk to get there, isn't it a dungeon? Yeah.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Because there would be hard hats involved in the transit to the dungeon. So.
And safety is important when it comes to torture.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't want to get hurt on the way to the torture place. That would be silly.
That just, yeah. I mean, it invalidates the whole system, right? Like, because then you have an injury and pain that isn't part of the system that you have to treat before you can really start torturing them, and then that changes the whole dynamic of the nurse-victim mentality. Like, you really, really need a healthy victim if you're gonna do torture right.
Yeah. Anyway.
Anyway.
Yeah, Semirhage is disturbing. I do think it's interesting, the line about how she had actually looked forward to medieval torture, because she had just built it up in her mind as like, medieval torture is going to be such an interesting experience to observe, and I've never been so powerless that I couldn't help but be tortured, so this will be interesting. Like, I do like that little insight into her, that she's so fascinated that she's not even afraid of it happening to her, per se.
Good God, is this what I've been doing to people? That really hurts, right? Like,
right.
Come on, Semirhage. Like, what do you think? Like, it's not pleasant, I don't know. But there is that challenge, right? Of like, can I stand the pain? Would I be better than the people who I've been torturing? Like, I get where she's coming from, but for her, that's the challenge. And this insight helps me a little bit with Floor Beans, right? Because she doesn't really concentrate on the spanking. She's just like, I've been treated like a child, and that feels like shit. And that, for some reason, broke me. I don't know. I wouldn't spank a child the way she was spanked.
Yeah, well, this is a different world.
Right.
But no, I do think it is weird how she's like, I'm going to be ready for the blows next time. Also, I was ready for coals in the pits of my elbows. Like, I guess because what she thought she was going to be holding out against was sharing information, not choosing to eat beans. Mm-hmm. But yeah, no, it is nice to get the insight on her, and that Cadsuane read her correctly and did in fact deliver the impact that she was looking for. Agreed, Vuji, exactly. She's a sadist who's a little machoism curious.
So in comes Shada Haran, right? AKA the avatar of the Dark One, basically.
Yeah, the literal hand of the shadow.
Sanderson likes to, again, he's hammering it over and over again, right? It's a taller, much more important Myrddraal. It's
humor.
the only Myrddraal that's ever smiled. It's probably something more than a Myrddraal. Hint, 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 hint. I mean, like, this is the Great Lord, his presence in the world. Whatever hole he's made through the seals by breaking 4 out of the 7, he's able to infest this particular fade, who we already know exists somewhat outside the pattern, as all fades do. And so somehow he's made that connection And these little bits of the Fade that are different are obviously just the Dark One has a sense of humor, right? The Dark One, of course, is tall. The Dark One is obsessed with height. His whole thing about his cave that brushes your head and makes you bow, right? Like, he's obsessed with height.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, this is the Dark One's sock puppet.
Oh yeah, these aren't even organic floor beans, Nemtok says. I like that idea that, like, it's not necessarily that they were floor beans, it's that, like, they were, shitty floor beans. If they'd been nice floor beans.
So like store brand.
Floor beans. I can't believe they're making me eat, like, Kirkland brand beans. God.
Yeah. But yeah, Shadowhuron is here to scold Semirhage for nearly killing Rand. Basically kind of expressing a lot of Moradin's angst. He's delivering a memo, so to speak, from Moradin. Like, what the fuck was that?
Yeah, you fucked up. You took his hand, which you weren't supposed to do. You nearly killed him, which you weren't supposed to do. You got captured, which you weren't supposed to do, and now you're broken, which is something that the Dark One does not like. He kills most of his followers who break like that, or brings them in for torture and, Kosuvra.
Right, but usually he brings them to her for torture. So what are you going to do when the torturer herself is the one that fucked up? It's a little of a bit of an administrative pickle.
You give her one last chance. But, debate. Do you think that the balefire, the embracing of the true source, the true power, the embracing of the true power, the breaking of the collar, do you think the Dark One and Shadowhuron intended that? Do you think they set Semirhage up to die?
I don't see how they set her up to succeed. I can't imagine how this setup was going to work out any other way, because the Dark One chooses who to give access to the true power to.
See, that is okay. Then I have another debate for you. Does the Dark One choose to give it to Rand, or is the Dark One only giving it to Moradin, and because of the crossing of the streams, he's able to access the true power through Moradin, and that is not under the Dark One's control, because once he's granted access, he doesn't necessarily have control over what is done with it.
I had never considered that. That is a very interesting question, because I assume that the Dark One is omnipotent, all-knowing, all-powerful, and so clearly everything is planned and known. But the crossing of the streams really does bend the cosmology of the world pretty hard. You're really not supposed to have balefire hitting balefire, even within the cosmology of this world. So, like, if anything was going to put events outside of the Dark One's control, it would be that.
And the reason I say that is because in the last battle, there's a line where Rand says he's pulling the true power through Moradin, right? I think he's using Moradin almost like an Angreal to pull the true power from the Dark One.
I always thought that was once the sword was in the picture, but I don't know.
But he's using the sword as an Angreal to amplify it, right?
Okay, I thought the sword was what gave him access to Moradin, but I might be wrong about that.
The women controlling the sword, right? So Moradin picks up the sword. He is then channeling through the sword. It has the flaw that if you're channeling through the sword, you can be taken control of without two women also in it, right? Rand is prevented from being vulnerable because he has two women, right? They're sort of filling the vulnerabilities. Without those two women, if you're using Kalendor, you can be seized control of. So at that point, they seize control of him, Moradin. And so the Dark One has, and that's where I think then Rand uses Moradin because they have control of him to pull the true power.
Right. So that none of that is applicable here, is my point.
No. Right. So...
And Moradin's not even in the same room.
No, but there is a moment where he does inhabit Moradin's body right before he uses the true power. We'll get to it.
In this scene?
In this scene.
Oh?
Yep.
Okay, well, this is all something I've never contemplated, so I don't have a solid answer yet. We'll work through it as we get through the chapter.
But I honestly think that this is... and that's where I'm wondering if this is what the Dark One intended, right? Because in a lot of ways, it does break Rand. It does break him and makes him the last that can be done has been done. And he is then ready to destroy the world, right? And that is exactly what I think the Dark One wants. On the other hand, I do think the true power was used without his permission.
I mean, in so many ways, it's the killing of Min, the near killing of Min, the act of trying to kill her that is the last that could be done. Like, I question how much accessing the true power makes it worse, Like, because if he hadn't accessed the true power, he would have completed killing her. Right? So, like,
right.
He's, at this point, like, that threshold has been crossed over, and then kind of however the situation falls out, either way, he's crossed the line that's going to make him screwy. But yeah, I don't see the Dark One setting up Semirhage on a path to success here. I feel like more than access to the collar would have guaranteed her escape, The collar feels like a trick to get her to take herself out usefully.
And I would say Rand has crossed the line into feeling like Moradin, and that's why he's able to access the true power.
But Moradin doesn't care about anybody.
Exactly. That's the line that Rand crosses after that's the last that can be done to him. He reaches that point of not caring about anything anymore.
But he does still care. That's why it's the last that could be done. It's because he cares about Min so much. Like, the pain of hurting her is what drives him to that line. And I don't think that's how Moradin got there. I don't know.
There's this line. We should talk about it more when we get to those lines, because I want to use evidence.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So Shadowhuron tells Semirhage, you have one last chance. And then she goes out and runs into Elsa, who is like, hey, I have compulsion on my mind. You should take it out. And then I'll be your little minion. And also here's the sad bracelets and the collar. So Semirhage's like, all right, sweet. I can do this. This is going to be awesome. Also, I get a little entertainment watching Elsa twitch in the throes of compulsion being removed.
Question. What compulsion is that on Elsa? Is that Varen's compulsion, or is that the compulsion of Shadowhuron on her to go do these things?
I was wondering that, and I completely forgot that Varen had compulsion there. Because I was like, yeah, I guess Shadowhuron gave her compulsion, but I don't see why, because she's already a dark friend. You'd think that Shadowhuron could just command her. But oh my god, I bet it totally was Varen. Because I bet that Varen's instructions included protecting Rand. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. Like, in some convoluted way, but, making sure he makes it to the last battle, et cetera, et cetera. Like, so yeah, I never thought of that, but I bet you're right. I bet it is Varen's compulsion being identified by the Dark One and being, again, like, the Dark One knows things and is just like, hey, Semirhage, why don't you just la-di-da your way into a spectacular death?
Well, and the compulsion was put there by a dark friend, right?
Mm-hmm. It was.
Right. So did Varen report that? Like, what's this? Are they suspecting Varen? Like, what's going on here?
I bet Shadowhuron just has spidey senses for knowing when someone's mind has been altered. Like the fact that there's weaves on her head, right? Because they like itch when they feel channeling. So I bet that Shadowhuron has like extra, night vision for weaves or whatever.
The three guards on the ground. One of them is dead. She looks and says, oh, 3 corpses, but actually only one out of the 3 is dead.
Yeah, 2 of them are knocked out, and then, Daigion is killed. I don't know why they killed her if they're not going to kill the other 2. It seems like you could have just knocked all 3 of them out. But I guess any less channelers is good for the Dark One.
I mean, the reason they didn't kill the other 2, they say, is because they had warders, and that would have alerted them. So it seems like they're just like, Dark Friend's default is kill them, but oh, if we kill these 2, the warders would know that their sister has been killed, so they would have alerted.
Yeah, but you still gotta kill as many as possible.
Exactly. Well, that's just, of course, that's default. You're a dark friend.
I don't know. Bodies are a whole different kind of complication. Seems like 3 knocked out people would be just as effective as 2 knocked out people and 1 dead person. But whatever.
I'm not arguing with you on that one. Whatever. They took out an Aes Sedai, though, right? She is the weakest Aes Sedai. She's the lowest of all the Aes Sedai on the power scale.
The least a threat. The least of a threat to all of them because, her brain couldn't possibly factor in, only her power level did. She was an ally to Cadsuane, who's about to get thrown out on her ass, so there's that.
About time.
We get a little hint, a little clue here that the Domination Band, part of why Semirhage knows about it is because it was crafted during the breaking. Oh no, that she wouldn't have known about it because she was locked up before the breaking. This is one of those things, right? That's always confusing. Is like, how did they figure out a bunch of technology that happened after they were sealed away?
I mean, it's imagine if you see the iPhone like 20, you'd be like, oh yeah, that was totally made like right after the Age of Legends, and you see like it's corrupted. And you're like, oh yeah, that's totally made during the breaking, right? Like,
yeah, sure.
You know, you can recognize technology that's related to what you were doing, but maybe a little more advanced or altered in some way or corrupted in some way, right? Like, it's why they're able to understand Kalendor really well. These things were all made during the breaking, and also, right, like they weren't sealed up until after the breaking. Well,
no, they're sealed up at the beginning.
But beginning of the breaking. You're right. But during the War of Power, they weren't sealed up until the very end of that, right? So they were.
It does seem that like the domination bands are something that would have been invented to try to deal with mad mail channelers,
right?
Like it wouldn't have been that need before the
Exactly. And my headcanon that the Dominion bands existed first, and the ADOMs were poor copies of those.
Yeah. Once the concept of controlling male channelers was out, it was like, well, but we could still control female channelers.
Exactly.
Like, that's still on the table.
We could try that, yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with that headcanon order of events.
Because we know, right, that Sean Chan Aes Sedai invented them, but where did she get the idea?
Right. Yeah, one assumes from the shattered fallout of the breaking that was being carried over to Sean Chan or whatever, or was already in Sean Chan, because there was clearly stuff going on before Arthur Hawking showed up. Arthur Hawking's son, sorry.
And it's canon that there are copies of this thing made, right? We don't even know if this is the original.
Yes.
This could be a copy of the original.
I believe that we've gone over this, yes.
Okay.
So yeah, Semirhage's happy now. She's got one last chance and a pistol with one bullet in it. She's good to go.
And so we POV switch to Rand, probably sometime later, one would assume a few minutes later, really, right? Like Semirhage has put on a costume. She's the cleaning lady going around in the background.
Well, we start out in the field. He's riding his horse around with the generals first. So yeah, this is more or less contemporaneous. But yeah, they're out there. Rand and Lews Therin are just sort of sharing his head, very like 50-50. But also Aitoralda and Bashir are there. And Rand is touring the Blight to show Aitoralda what the Blight is, and Aitoralda and Bashir are like, you sure you want us policing each other's countries? You sure that's the most efficient arrangement? And Rand's like, for cold, terrible political reasons, yes, this is the most efficient.
Well, it's what he did with the Kyrian and the Andorans and the Tyrans, right? Is he like put them all in each other's territory, because they were all going to betray him, right? They were all this pack of nobles who he couldn't trust. And so he had put them all in each other's territory in order to isolate them and make them not a threat. Did it work? No. But he's doing it again. And these, unfortunately, are people who are much more dedicated to him and much more willing to fight for him. And it seems like it's almost paranoia at this point rather than common sense.
And megalomania, too, right? Because Aitoralda says, you do realize that, like, taking 50,000 foreign troops into a country without permission is kind of like an act of war? And Rand's like, well, it's not an act of war if I'm the Dragon Reborn and I'm fighting the Dark One, then it's fine. It's like, I don't feel like that was the most efficient way to handle this, dude. Mm-hmm. Like, he's kind of giving it's not breaking the law if I'm saving the country kind of vibes, you know? Like, yeah, I don't... Like, yes, we haven't made proper contact with Tenobia. The whole Borderlander situation's kind of weird, but, like, there's some paranoid megalomania going on with how he's just moving the little toy soldiers around the board at this point.
I wanted to talk a little bit about him getting sick when he seizes the One Power, right? Because this is related to the crossing of the streams, right? This sickness started when he crossed the streams with Moradin. But it ends when he reintegrates. And I've been thinking about that. And I'm like, why does it end when it reintegrates? It doesn't make a lot of sense to me because they seem unrelated to the crossing of the streams. But today, later, when I think he sort of gets into Moradin's body, I had a thought. He's very close to Moradin. Him and Moradin are the same pattern. Their souls are kind of touching. Whatever it is, he can move sideways into Moradin's body very easily.
Quantum entangled.
And so every time he goes to seize the power, he is fighting, whether you want to call it himself or LTT, the voice in his head, he's fighting and in a lot of ways kind of repelling off of himself and kind of bouncing, and that sort of bounces him out of his body, and he sort of vibrates into Moradin's body and then back into his own as he's fighting himself for control of the power. Once he's no longer fighting himself for control of the power, he's much more solid in his body, and he doesn't do this reverberation with Moradin anymore.
Like a harmonic oscillation that just is disturbing.
That's what I'm thinking, is just because he himself is so out of harmony, he's resonating with Moradin. And that's causing this vibration and nausea and sickness and stuff like that.
He's crossfaded on too many personalities and getting the spins.
No shit, he's got too many people in his head, right? Like, and now he's got too many heads, right?
Literally, right?
Yeah. So, like, I think there's this weirdness where he crosses over, and I want to see it when we get there.
Yeah, that makes sense.
There's a lot of LTT ranting. None of the men who can channel can be trusted. We should never let them get so close to us. And then, Rand, the madman, had trouble with other men who could channel. And I always think in these situations, the madman is Rand talking about himself, because he is the madman. Yeah.
Yeah, the madman hissed and sputtered and yelled. And there's all these little lines. I'm like, Rand, that's you.
That's you.
Like, he's thinking the most dangerous enemies were those you assumed you could trust. That's not in italics, Rand.
No, the things Lewis Theron says are almost the more sane things that Rand thinks.
They're both pretty bonkers at this point. Neither of them is making any sense. They're both having a bad day right now.
The night where he had dreamed of Moradin, there had been no Lewis Theron in his mind, right? We talked about that. That was when he was in Lewis Theron's head completely. He had gone over into his dream, so then there was no taint in his body, right? Mm-hmm. So that he was no insanity. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was going to point out the next line, like that he does still have fear and connection to his human emotions because it twists his belly to know that his dreams aren't safe anymore. It's like, I think of him as being so frozen and cold. And it's like, no, he's admitting to having like internal fear and anxiety because his dreams had been a refuge. He does still have a sense of there's a refuge for me. It is my dreams. I can at least have that. And like that it is upsetting to him to lose that is like, oh yeah, there's one last little shred of humanity. Bye-bye.
Still, yeah, for now.
Yeah.
Till the end of this chapter.
And then the next thing I've got is he's thinking about Min and how she wants him to be, soft and kind. And he thinks, could a man who could...
Min didn't want him to be hard.
I mean, she wants him to be hard. But, not for more than 4 hours.
If your emotions turn to Quendiar for more than 4 hours, you may want to see a psychiatrist.
Basically. The next one I wanted to talk about is, could a man who could laugh also be the man who could face what needed to be done at Shale Ghul? This is a really critical thing, right? Cadsuane thinks exactly the inverse of what he's thinking here, right? Rand thinks a man who can laugh can't possibly do what needs to be done at Shale Ghul. Cadsuane and everyone else who reads the prophecies are saying you have to be the kind of man who can laugh in order to do what needs to be done at Shale Ghul. If you're allowed to drive this ship, you're going to drive us straight into the ground.
100%, right? You need that ability to be empathetic, because think about what the last battle for him ended up being. It ended up being a contest of wills about the good in humanity and why they deserve to live. And if you can't laugh and see that laughter isn't a huge part of why we deserve to live, you're not going to win that battle.
Yeah, no, if you don't value laughter and joy and love, if you don't personally value and experience those things, you're gonna choose the nihilistic path when the Dark One offers nothing as an alternative to struggle. Like, if you don't value laughter, if you can't experience laughter, why would you pick anything other than nothing? Like, no, Rand. Oh, God.
Here's one thing that I don't think I ever grasped before, is Rand's interpretation of the line, to live you must die. The answer to one of his 3 questions, right? And we always know that, to live, you've got to go through and defeat the Dark One and have your blood on the rocks and your body has to die. And then we find out what that means. Here, he thinks in order to live, in order to have a living legacy, basically in order for humanity to continue and remember you, you have to die at Shale Ghul to preserve everything.
I mean, if the dragon is one with the land and the land is one with the dragon, then the land continuing to live means he lives, right? It's not the worst interpretation from where he's sitting.
True. But but he's still in this mindset of I will die. It's just I will hopefully have some sort of legacy. But then he psychs himself out and is like, there's no point in thinking beyond the last battle. Whatever happens, happens. Despite the school, despite his, making everybody sign peace treaties. Well, that happens later. But for now, the fact that he's trying to keep all the people alive and create peace with Seanchan.
Right, yeah, because ultimately, once you sort out the slavery thing, you are going to have to coexist with these people. You don't want to all be dead. You want to be alive and coexisting. That is the long-term goal.
Yeah, when one people comes back to what they would call their ancestral land and attempt to live on it when another people already occupies that space, it really creates some political drama that can cause, and you really don't want to wipe out one of those people. You really need a state, right, of the Seanchan and a state of Rand. We're going to call it a two-state solution, which is probably better than what we have going on right now.
And I think the branding needs a little work, but yeah. Rand as a state, I don't know.
Well, Randland as a state.
I don't know if we need one man's personality stamped quite so hard on everything, but go off, I guess.
Fine, Elaine Land.
Yay, equality.
She leads the coalition at the end in the last battle. Yeah,
I like in Avienda's vision the name. It's like the Pact of the Griffin. I'm like, that's some good branding. Pact of the Griffin is some good branding. So then Lews Therin does some ranting about how Min is pretty and correct, both at the same time. Yeah, Rand basically has a whole muttered conversation with Lews Therin and doesn't even think about how it's affecting everyone around him. He's so deep in his own madness at this point.
And this is where he gets a couple of clues, right? He confirms the idea that you do have to break the old seals in order, you have to sweep away the rubble, right, in order to create the new ones. And you get the clue that you can't touch the Dark One with Saidin, and then he logically concludes Saidar, right? Because you're just going to taint whatever you touch him with.
Critical information,
which then leads to him channeling the one thing that he can touch the Dark One with, which is the Dark One himself. It's like, why are you punching yourself? He just takes the Dark One's own power and hits him in the face with it, right? And that's how he's able to clog up the hole. Which
makes no sense to me. That feels like a self-defining definition, but whatever.
So, okay, again, this is where I come back to the fact that the Dark One is not willingly giving Rand access to the true power. He's giving it to Moradin, and because of the Bronze Dagger is really important here, he doesn't realize how it's being used. He thinks Moradin is using it against Rand in the battle.
Because he could have withdrawn it if he'd known it was Rand.
That's what I think, yes.
But he knows it's Rand now, because Rand doesn't have the Bronze Dagger yet.
Well, yes, and that's where I'm wondering if maybe this whole thing was set up to drive him over the edge. And to grant him access to take Darth Rand, turn him Uber Darth, and give him access to the one thing that was locked up from him he didn't have access before. The Choden Call.
He didn't need the true power to have access to the Choden Call, though.
No, but giving him access to the true power, which gives him despair, giving him access and makes him basically betray his whole purpose of an avatar of the creator or whatever, right? He shouldn't be touching that power.
Sure. Jesus should not be channeling Satan's powers. Yeah.
Exactly, right? Making him despair, doing the last that can be done, and giving him access to the power to destroy the world. Right, that's the whole thing up in Veins of Gold is he destroys the Choden Call. He's going to use it to take out the world.
You're nihilistic enough to be trusted with this loaded gun that could also seal me away forever.
Right. So I'm but I like your point that maybe the Dark One didn't want to give him access to the true power. He wanted to give him access to everything else.
Yeah, I don't know. It's because Rand does need something more powerful than the regular one power to destroy the world, right? An army of madmen could only rearrange the continents and raise mountains, right? They couldn't destroy the planet. So one man is going to need something a bit stronger if we want to end the world. So you do have to prepare him to point that nuclear option in the right direction, right?
But the Choden Call certainly fulfills that as the world-ending nuke. It certainly has enough power to do that by itself.
Yeah, but he has to choose to do that, and having access to the Dark One's power does definitely... It just escalates his entire sense of his options, right? Like, his whole Overton window of acceptable options kind of cranks up.
Right. And he also ends up carrying around the Choden Call as an alternative to the true power, right? He's like,
exactly.
well, yeah, I could either have world-ending power on my left hand or, soul-ending power on my right hand. And if I can't decide between two of them, I'm not going to use either. It's how I use my Amazon cart, right? Like, I just put a bunch of stuff in my cart, and if I can't decide between them, I don't buy anything. It's great.
Yeah, I've done that. Yeah, it's complicated cosmology going on here.
He talks a little bit about his emotions. He curses the voice because it doesn't have the solution, right? You don't actually know. You still have to think about it. He hasn't figured out about this third power yet. I think it's interesting he thinks about Tam.
Yes, he thinks about home and how, like, he's lost so many emotions that, like, maybe the facade is real and, like, oh man, he wants to see Tam so bad, but it would be bad. It would be really bad if he saw Tam. And I'm just like, Cadsuane, for all her flaws, knows that you really want to see your dad. She knows that you need a big dad hug. She's figured that much out.
Well, I don't know if she figures it out or if she tries it out of desperation. I mean, by the end of this chapter, she really has no idea what's going on.
Right for the wrong reasons or wrong for the right reasons. It's fine.
It's fine. It works. It works.
It works. Because that's what Rand needs. Rand really needs a big ol' hug from his dad.
I also like how he says at the last battle, he would not be able to lean on anyone other than himself. And I'm thinking about, except, Moraine and Nynaeve in the cave with you.
Right. And also Tom guarding the entrance, and also Perrin and Gaul in the dream. Like, there's so many people dedicated to helping you get through the literal last battle. Like, aside from fighting the battle, like, there's so many people in your orbit specifically protecting you. Like, sir, toxic individualism is not going to do it. You need a community. You need community care. You need friends. You need support. You cannot do this on your own.
So they're still at Lord Talane's place, and he's complaining about the smoke because of that bubble of eel, that dude who exploded into black tar.
Adrin the lava man.
Yeah, he turned into lava. So Rand's compensating him for the smoky smell, apparently.
I mean, I think it's the burned building. I think it's the repair of the part of it. Because there's just a tarp in place of the front door. Like, the building is trashed.
Oh, I had a coworker's house caught fire recently.
Yikes.
Maybe don't include all those details. I don't have his permission to share that story.
For public consumption, we can say house fires, even small ones that get contained, can really trash a lot of stuff. So Lord Talane being like, can I have some insurance to, like, clean my house that can never be cleaned and, like, rebuild the entire front foyer? Like, please, Rand, you're the Dragon Reborn. Can I have a little insurance payout?
And you don't know what was in that Dark One tar smoke, right? That was some toxic shit. That's not normal, bad firehouse burning. Yeah.
I'm assuming some, like, heavy metals, like, some serious carcinogens. Like, it was bad. It was bad. That was bad stuff. I gave a little talk the other day, a little rant to some friends about a very specific volcano in Iceland and a very specific eruption. And it was particularly toxic fumes that came out of that one. Lots and lots of fluoride. So I'm imagining that the Dark One was doing some really toxic lava. Like, there's more and less toxic lava. I'm assuming that this was like 11 out of 10 on the toxic scale. Like, people are getting fluoridosis just from looking at it. It's bad.
I feel like the next couple of pages is mostly him thinking about living after the last battle and his legacy. He's starting to sort of get more memories of the past. He can almost remember the desperation of trying to seal the making the decision to seal the Dark One's bore without the female half.
Yeah. Well, him and Luce there, and the veil is getting very thin.
Yes.
It's really eroding with every subsequent, like, time that they're sort of switching back and forth. Like, the veil's getting thinner.
Yeah, you'd think that he would stop getting more insane with the taint cleanse, but it feels like he's just wearing away, and, like, that veil is getting thinner, and his memories are getting clearer, and, like, yeah, something's still happening.
And if that integration happens badly, he's going to be two people at once. right? It happens in a good way where he synthesizes them, but like otherwise he could just be two people at the same time. We've also got the introduction of a very Sandersonian thing, very Mormon thing.
Ooh, bring it up.
The small, still voice. The small, still voice inside. That's actually his voice. It's like, I read a bunch of Mormon literature for a while, just because cultural safari stuff, and the still small voice is such a phrase. It's such a phrase. It gets used all the time in all of their little stories that confirm their faith in their little magazine. And it's just such a not Robert Jordan Turner phrase, and it's such a Mormon thing, and it just fits so well into how Rand, like, moves through the Darth, moves through the LTT.
Where's the phrase "still small voice"? Can you give me context on that?
And will you have no legacy other than that? A voice whispered in the back of his mind. Not Luce Theron, but his own thought. A small voice. The part of him that had prompted him to found schools in Cairn and Andor. It comes up again and again. When he's doing his Veins of Gold thing, or when he throws Tam to the ground before Veins of Gold, like the small voice goes silent. Like, it's just an interjection of the new author vibe.
I can defend it in the idea that now essentially Rand has flipped, right? The part of him that is the farm boy, the part of him that was that young kid, the part of him that wasn't insane is still there in the back of his head, but he's really just this insane dictator now.
Right, yeah, no, for sure.
And the small voice is being like, hey, you wouldn't have done this 5 years ago, buddy. Like, you really shouldn't be being this terrible. And Rand's like, no, but this is what I have to be. This is what I have to be. Shut up. Like, and so from that perspective where we've sort of seen this flip and this transition where Farmer Rand was the voice up front and what you heard was this insane ranting in the back of his head that scared you. Now, really, the person up front is the person who's insane.
Oh, yeah, no, for sure. It fits in the cosmology just great. And, like, certainly I have, like, 1,000 voices in my head yelling at me about things all the time. So, like, I get it, but it's just a little mechanic that I've noticed.
Fair enough. Yeah, no, I mean, it's something I've seen other authors use, but I didn't realize it was Mormon coded for you.
Yeah, I just spent a few years really, like, reading their stuff, and it was just, like, that was a very recurrent piece of their storytelling toolkit. So, it stands out. But, like you said, it really fits into the cosmology of this character, too.
And I do feel like it's something I see a lot in fantasy literature. That there's this introspective voice that it's like, what are you doing, buddy? You really shouldn't be using that magic wand. But I did it anyway, like...
Yeah, that's true. We get a mention of snakes and foxes, which is fun. Just reminding us of the rules as Matt slowly creeps towards the Tower of Genji.
Mm-hmm. You got to time that right. You can't rescue her too early. We can't have too many scenes with Moraine in these books.
That would be terrible.
Well, he has no idea how to write her, so that yeah.
Yeah. From there, we get into him talking to Min and having a real good heart-to-heart and thinking that maybe he's gone too far, while this serving woman just sort of bustles in the background, and it's really annoying, and can't she hurry up? And, like, why is she getting so much screen time? I'm trying to have a heart-to-heart with my wife over here, and then click.
Right. Yeah. No, and there's a moment right before... he gets collared where she's like, she's right. I've grown too harsh. What will become of me if I grow suspicious of those I know love me? I'll be no better than mad Louis Theron. And it's like, yeah, that's where he's going. And like, she was pulling him back from that. They had a chance to stop him from going super dark. And then essentially events transpired where he jumped off the deep end.
Yeah, Semirhage really couldn't have picked a more perfect last moment at which to stick this stick in the spokes,
Taviran.
Ugh, yeah, Taviran, but like dark. And it's a bad time. Rand was a bad time.
And what precedes is kind of I would almost call it an action scene. There's some stuff I do want to talk about, though, but like, oh, man.
It's definitely an action scene. Things are moving fast for the next couple of pages.
Right. Yeah, the next couple of pages portray, 30 seconds in actual time.
As many as 50.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very quick because there's the moment where like, oh, Elsa's going to save us. Oh shit, Elsa's actually a bad guy. Like there's a few things transpire, but yeah, shit's happening fast.
So she clicks on, I love Min's reaction, immediately throw a dagger at the Forsaken as fast as you can.
She's from nearby to the Two Rivers. She's definitely of the throw things, ask questions later school of thought.
And so she gets her second cut in on Semirhage, which, it makes her more badass.
Well, and also now there's a cut on Semirhage's face, which just makes her even more scary hot.
Mm-hmm. Jesus Christ, Aradia. No. Bad.
I'm sorry, the scary lady is exciting. But now she's got the cheek thing, and it's,
The cheek thing in a Domination Band, is that really what you're into?
Look, everyone knows cheek scars are hot, okay? I don't make the rules.
My brain does, though. No.
I do love Min's boldness, though. Just being like, anyone attacking Rand, throw knives. Don't care who they are. Don't care how powerful they are. Don't care what their reputation is. Knives first.
Mm-hmm. Which makes a lot of sense considering the amount of time she trains and how much she has them in her sleeves. Like it's Chekhov's knives, right? Jordan talks about them constantly, and it's nice to see her actually throwing them every once in a while, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, finally. Mm-hmm. And she manages to hurt a Forsaken at all. Like big points to her as a non-powered mere mortal,
So yeah, Elsa walks in looking pretty rough because she's had the compulsion taken off of her.
Right, yeah.
But now she's pissed because I think she was compelled to protect Rand.
Well, I mean, it was all still for her own reasons. But yeah, she's tagging along with Semirhage going, I definitely signed up for this. This is what I expected being a dark friend to be.
I mean, you got to admit, there's a moment where she is pretty like, oh, fuck yeah, I just took Rand prisoner. I'm going to be like top notch, new Forsaken, right? Like, I'm going to get all the accolades for that. And then Rand starts getting tortured and she starts realizing she's in way over her head.
Yeah, she's like, ooh. Oh, that's what we're doing.
Mm-hmm. And then she's snuffed out of existence.
Yeah, she doesn't have long to regret her decision. No. But yeah, Rand has the very terrible, horrible experience of being trapped in his own body. He even has a moment where he thinks he's trapped like Lews Therin has been trapped, right? Just riding along as a passive passenger in someone else's head. And it's pretty horrifying, even before you get into the torturing other people with your body that you can't control.
Right, and they go into how the Dominion Band is different than the Adom in that this just takes your free will away. It doesn't deter you with pain. It doesn't use nausea. You can give pain for sure, but it does not. You just lose free will and total control over the nerves in your body. I feel like the Adom is because there's two types of nerves, right? The ones that feel and the ones that control. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like the Adom can only really affect the ones that can feel. And so what it does is provide crippling pain when you try and do anything it doesn't want you to do. Whereas the black Adom is able to control both and can actually control your movements and stuff like that.
Right. Which makes sense, right? If the Adom is a knockoff downgrade from the Domination Band because of, technology decay over the decades that it took to sort out the breaking, it makes sense that it would be less total than the earlier technology. So yeah, Lews Therin and Rand kind of merge together with a PTSD flashback in the middle of all this torture. We're in the box. This is worse than the box. This is the box. Now I don't know who I am, but I'm not going to scream anymore because the cup is officially overflowing and there's no point anymore.
And he remembers killing himself, which I always think is an interesting point because you know the desperation. You're in the mindset of the person who has killed themselves out of desperation and remembering that death. And also how important it is, I think, to Veins of Gold that he remembers killing himself and goes, killing myself wasn't enough. I'm back. Right?
Very
just
Moradin.
Suicide. Very Moradin. Suicide doesn't stop
or Ishamael, I should say.
The experience. And if you can remember killing yourself, you know that that's not the end.
Right. Which, yeah, definitely is part of how Ishamael ended up where he was at. So yeah, Semirhage is a little bit frustrated and confused that Rand is denying that she can do anything more to him. And then she's like, I am the Lady of Pain. You really think you can ultimatum me like that? Let me do literally one thing and immediately break you. Right? Because Rand's like, I'm so tough. I don't care about anything. The second that her attention turns to Min, he's like, back to being normal Rand and begging for Min's life. And it's like,
Well, and he keeps saying, no more can be done to me. No more can be done to me. And it's like, you said that once and then more was done to you. And then you're saying it again, which I think is like, in a lot of ways, yes, it is the no more can be done to him moment, but also like, it never ends. There's always more people to hurt. There's always more death. There's always more pain that he can go through. And so in a lot of ways, this kind of proves that it doesn't matter how much you go through. You still need to be a good person, right? Being bad doesn't fix any of this, and it doesn't stop people from being hurt.
mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
The fact that he thinks he's reached the end of it, and I'm like, no. You can definitely still be hurt. Like,
Yeah.
you can definitely still be hurt. Yeah.
Maybe be a little bit more cautious with those ultimate statements.
But this is the first of 2 times he says it, right, in this chapter.
Yeah, I know, right? Because he's like, yeah, then that could be done. And then in later chapters, he's like, why am I still so angry? I thought the last that could be done had been done. And
It's like, yeah, no.
The human capacity for suffering is actually pretty much infinitely expandable.
Just like our imagination, yay.
Yeah, brain plasticity is unfortunately a tool that cuts both ways. So yeah, she tortures Min and Rand with torturing Min, and they sort of iterate on that for a bit. And then Semirhage's like, I'm going to use you to get out of here, and it's going to be fine. And Rand's like, oh no, I'm going to literally be the tool that destroys my own armies. This is going to be terrible.
Right. They're not going to be able to kill me because I'm the only one who can save the world, and they're going to worry that killing me will doom them, but they're doomed anyway because I'm captured. Right. Yeah, all that kind of stuff.
Right, so it's all cascading into one thing. And and then he has to kill Min, even though he begged not to, because why would Semirhage keep her promises, you ding-dong? She's like, oh yeah, I mean, I considered your request, and I decided not to. Like, I'm Semirhage, whatever.
And then she uses a slowly descending trap, which he cannot escape, and turns her back. I don't know. He could have, had him barbecue Min in half a second, and he couldn't have done this thing and reacted. But the slow torturous death gives him time to flail about and find something in order to attack her.
When the villain gloats at the end, that's when the hero wins.
Yep. This is really her mistake. He caught her monologuing.
If the villain ever gloats, yeah, exactly. It's the evil monologue. Like, come on, Semirhage. I know you're evil. I know you're twirling your mustache, but be smart. But no, she is not smart.
And visually, I always think of it with 2 hands, but he only has 1 hand to choke her out with.
Yeah. It's and the writing is very good. Whoever was doing the editing on this went through it with a fine-toothed comb and made sure we only ever had reference to 1 hand. I didn't spot any errors on that. Yeah, and then he's so desperate that he somehow breaks through the barrier between him and Moradin and grabs a hold of the Dark One.
Yeah, he grew cold. Then that coldness vanished, and he could feel nothing. No emotion, no anger. In a lot of ways, this is the opposite of the flame in the void. This is the frozen in the void, right? This is like, instead of feeding his emotions into a flame, he's freezing them away.
Yeah.
And, like freezing and burning creates a lot of the same effects. But this puts him at a point, this coldness puts him at a point where I think he's in the same mind frame as Moradin. Right? This no emotions, feeling nothing, feeling cold. Like Moradin just wants to die. He has no emotions other than that.
Yeah.
And so at this point, I think that's where the next sentence, at that moment he grew aware of a strange force. It was like a reservoir of water, boiling and churning just beyond his view. He reached toward it with his mind. A clouded face flashed before Rand's own, one whose features he couldn't quite make out. It was gone in a moment. So as he's reaching for the true power, he's basically reaching through Moradin's face. He sees Moradin's face as he's reaching for that power. He's reaching through Moradin's body for that power.
So do you think that also helps disguise his activity to the Dark One, even without the bronze knife in the picture? Because, Moradin is the point of contact.
He's feeding the power to Moradin, who's in that place and time, and that's all he knows.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that does definitely seem like there's some Moradin getting enmeshed into that signal.
The clouded face has to be Moradin, right? That's the only
There's
face
no
we
other
see him.
faces
There's no
it
other
could be.
faces that he's seeing, right? Like repeatedly the two men merging into one. He thinks it's LTT. It's not. It's Moradin, right?
Yeah. No, yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, there's no other face that flashes before his eyes, and Moradin's the only one with access to the power. And I do.
And it's between him reaching for the power and him filling himself with the power, he sees the face. Like paragraph 1, reaching, face filled with power.
Yeah, for sure. And I've always mentally pretzeled myself so hard trying to figure out how the Dark One was 4D chessing by intending this to happen. And it's so much simpler to just be like, nah, the Dark One is in fact fallible. And the Moradin Balefire stream crossing, like, actually just... That's such a simpler explanation than all the pretzels I've been trying to run myself through. Like, nah, let's just go with the simple explanation that the Dark One literally had the situation get away from him.
Because there's no way to foresee the crossing of the Balefire streams, because that's weirdly outside the pattern and caused the pattern to do something that it wouldn't normally do, which is overlap 2 threads.
Well, and also, like, you have 2 things that are pushing backwards in time at the same time. So it's like, can it even exist on the timeline at all? Right? The echo, the whole itself never existed. Like, very hard for a temporal reality to grasp that. Even though the Dark One is outside of time, he's pretty connected to time also. So, like, it's a weird blind spot on the radar.
Because the whole thing is he's trapped by the wheel. He experiences time, even though he's outside of it. And so he hates that.
Right. So, like, Balefire on Balefire kind of creates a timeless whole that would be hard to grasp the implications of.
I like it.
Oh, light blinded fool in the chat. Rand strangling Min makes him harder. Thanks, Brandon. Even RJ didn't go there.
Jesus.
I made the choice to read that into the recording.
You did. You certainly did. So, Rand embraces the true power. I love Louis Theron's reaction. Oh, light, Louis Theron suddenly screamed. That's impossible. We can't use it. Cast it away. That is death we hold. Death and betrayal. It is him, right? They're holding the Dark One's power.
Yeah.
And Louis Theron reacts appropriately, I think, in this case.
Yeah, no, Louis Theron's reaction is rational, I would say. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really like your idea that this is the opposite of the flame. Like, it's cold. It's the same thing, but just from the other end of the temperature spectrum. That's just that mirror inversion is, that's just really perfect for this, especially with the way that Louis Theron is like, look, I might be insane, but I know not to fuck with that.
And that's the different way of, either way you have to burn away your emotions, but whether you put them in the cold or whether you put them in the flame lets you embrace one or the other.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And yeah, the true power is to the one power what the one power is to regular life. It's more, bigger, better, extra, jumbo, supersize. Reality is more. It is more.
Someone discovered he liked pain in a different kind of way, which is very appropriate for the Semirhage chapter.
Yeah.
But right, yeah. He screamed in both rapture and rage.
As painful as it was also pure ecstasy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's, the Dark One and Semirhage have more in common than the Dark One and some of the other Forsaken. They have a couple of extracurricular interest overlaps. I don't think the Dark One's much for music, but the Dark One clearly likes the pleasure pain thing. I just don't see the Dark One having a lot. No.
Are you saying Asmodean is not the Dark One's favorite?
Asmodean's nickname is musician. Okay? He doesn't have a cool name. He doesn't have a cool reputation. He was just like, the Stradivari of their world. Like, that's it. And
as far as I'm aware, he is the only Forsaken that isn't Balefired. Well, we can argue whether or not he was Balefired. But he was the only Forsaken who wasn't ever given a second chance, who died. Who didn't die by, like, Rand Balefiring them or Moraine Balefiring them, right? Like, all the other Forsaken that died were given a second chance.
He was deemed having had one chance too many already.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think the Dark One was big on music.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, I'm highly convinced that, like, he wasn't even Balefired. He was just killed, and the Dark One was like, oh, yep, there he goes. Anyway.
Thank God we're done with that one.
Right. Same thing he did when Agenor was killed the second time. When he got, barbecued along with the hilltop. The Dark One wasn't like, ooh, let me grab that soul really quick. Also, he was in the middle of the battle with Rand, but like, he wasn't like, ooh, let me grab that one really quick. He was just like, yeah, that was pretty useless. You can keep going.
Yeah, he's like, I had a couple of fresh ones lined up to take those slots anyway. We'll just let that one go.
Oh no, that wasn't the last battle. That was during the cleansing. Yeah, and he totally could have grabbed him at that point, and we could have had him come back.
And didn't care to.
No, not care to. No need. Because he was kind of useless as a spy against Rand, right? Like, he never did anything of any importance.
Yeah, had no influence with anyone, much less Rand.
So Semirhage has a moment to realize that she's been betrayed before Rand true power balefires her. And Elsa has a second to start running before he true power balefires her as well. Yeah.
I like how he goes from I won't kill women to I will kill Elsa as she runs away, right, but all she did was just watch.
She held the other handle of the collar. She was controlling him.
Sure, but she's like terrified, not taking action, and then turns to run, and he just without a fucking
He's like, no,
pause,
dark friend gone.
Like,
yeah.
Double taps both of them, like, out. Like, literally, as he was going to kill men, he's like, I'm not gonna kill a woman. And, like, 30 seconds later, he's like, no, both of these bitches are done.
Mm-hmm. No, he's gone through a transition, for sure. He's gone to a deeper level of willingness to kill women.
Yeah. And way beyond what Lews Therin can comprehend. Lews Therin's like, I would have rather killed my wife again than done that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think he's talking about embracing the true power.
Exactly. Like that's what Rand had to do to be able to kill them, was like embrace the true power. And Lews Therin's just like, oh yeah, the killing women thing is nothing against the power we're using to do it. Like, oh God, no.
Yeah. So he loses the true power, and that leaves him numb. No, okay. He says, oh no, the numbness had nothing to do with the power he held. That numbness is sort of him breaking that. That's the last that could be done. That's the coldness he gets. That's the idea that he has to be numb to embrace the true power, not the other way around.
Yeah, and also just the numbness of like, I can't be soft for men. I can't even protect men, right? Like, this is him crystallizing from steel to Quaindiar. It's like, that's the numbness. Quaindiar does not have a nervous system. Apparently Steel did, but Quaindiar doesn't.
And I'm convinced at that moment, Moradin's sitting there going, what the fuck just happened?
Moradin definitely like dropped his cup of tea, right? Like,
yeah, like it was just like, holy shit, I feel like I'm channeling, right? Like something was going on with him. Probably got more saw in his eyes, stuff like that.
Yeah, totally. Like, I mean, because, the other people who are bonded to Rand all felt something, right? Like, Avienda's the one who raises the alarm because she's like, that nightmare feels way too real. Like, right? Because we get with her later and she thinks that she had a small amount of tow for not realizing what was happening because she just assumed it was a nightmare, and then it turns out it was really... But she's the one that raised the alarm. So one assumes that Moradin also felt something if Avienda felt something, particularly with the touching of the Dark One. Like, I don't see how Moradin could possibly have been ignorant of that as it happened. Yeah, exactly. Moradin suddenly realizing that he's an access key. While we have the slow motion falling cup shot, right, and it shatters on the ground and the tea goes everywhere. And like, then Rand looks at Min and says, sorry, babe, I'm going to have to be the worst now.
Yeah. He would be harder now. He understood how. Where he'd once been Steel, he would become something else. From now on, he was Quaindiar. He had entered a place like the void that Tam had trained him to seek so long ago, but within this void he had no emotion. None at all. They could not break or bend him. It was done.
Turns the page to the next chapter, because it is in fact not done.
Not done, yeah.
We have a whole ass another book to go through. 2 books to go through. It's not done.
The next chapter is Cadsuane's POV. So, and the symbol's the dragon?
A warp in the air. Yes, that's the dragon.
Yeah, so the warp in the air is the darkness around him that she sees out of the corner of her eye, which is his connection to the Dark One, his taint of the Dark One, his use of the true power. What do you think?
I think it's kind of like the thing that lets Aes Sedai or channelers feel like shadow spawn. I think it's something like that. He's sort of giving off shadow spawn energy, like the vibes on the metaphysical level that channelers are able to just sort of pick up on. I remember that Tame has been teaching a weave like this to his people, like a menacing weave that's been in the Ashaman toolkit for a while. It's like Rand just has that on constantly now. Yeah, so we join Cadsuane, and she's asking what the hell happened and what happened to the sisters guarding the cell, and we get the information that only one of them died that we talked about in the last chapter. And here's something I wanted to ask you about. Cadsuane nodded crossly. Of all the knights to be out visiting the wise ones in their tents. Of all the knights to be visiting the wise ones in their tents. There's no way that's a coincidence and Shaidar Haran just happened to pick that by coincidence, right? Like, Cadsuane had to have been invited off-site in a way that, like that had to have been deliberate, right?
Why would he care about killing Cadsuane? Like,
killing Cadsuane? What? Cadsuane's not dead.
No. But, like, why would the Dark One arrange to have her outside the tents or wait until... Why wouldn't he just come in and... Why wouldn't the Shaidar Haran kill her like he killed the other two? Or other one.
I guess because her paralysis net has unknowns on it, maybe?
Yeah.
Like, maybe she's got powers that they don't know about, and they just decided that it would be much easier to pull this off if she was not on site.
I do think it's just a coincidence. I think that she just... no, you do... Okay, why not?
Why would it be a coincidence? How? What?
Taviran.
Really? You think that Taviran made it just a coincidence?
I got nothing. I got no way to justify that they waited. Why would they wait until she was out of the tent? That doesn't make sense to me. Like, why would she... I feel like she went out to consult about, like, what to do now that she's broken Semirhage.
Yeah, well, I guess what it is I've always wondered if there was, like, if Soralea was actually a dark friend. Like, this is a theory. This is a theory that's existed for a long time.
Yeah,
and
go for
this
it.
has always been the strongest piece of evidence for me, because she's not a dark friend by all accounts, but, like, why the hell was Cadsuane not on site this one night? The only wise one she respects is Soralea. Either it's just a coincidence, which don't happen in these books, or someone made sure that she wasn't going to be in the building when Rand was getting attacked.
Coincidences happen all the time. They just say it's because Taviran and move on and keep going and don't call it coincidence.
I don't like it.
And also, like, the Black Ajah clearly had no knowledge of what was going on inside the Wise Ones. You'd think there would be some knowledge transfer if there were Dark Friend Wise Ones.
You would? But why? It seems like it was very convenient that she wasn't in the building when Semirhage was getting let out.
I don't know. Maybe she's hanging out with Vannon, who's actually Demandred.
Vannon's not here.
I got nothing. I don't know what. Yeah, I don't think there are any Dark Friend Wise Ones. So I can't help you out there. There's certainly Dark One Aiel, but I really do think that it was just Cadsuane going to consult with Soralea now that she's broken Semirhage and wanted, like, hey, what do I do now? What do you think? Like, also Rand's going nuts. Help.
I mean, I agree that makes sense. I just don't believe in coincidence in these books.
Do you believe in magic? 'Cause I hope you do.
But you are right that, like, it would make sense that Cadsuane would be going to the Wise Ones for advice now that she's broken Semirhage. That the timing of that does make sense. I just want there to be nefariousness.
Nefarii, I believe, would be.
Yeah. Anyway, whether or not that was a deliberate thing or not, Cadsuane's annoyed about it. And she goes into there, does a head count, and wonders where Elsa is. Where's Elsa? Where's Elsa? We all know where Elsa is. Elsa is not here. Elsa's gone.
Particulate tiny. She's well, no, that's a question. What happens to the atoms when they get bale fired? Is this just like bale fired out of existence, or are they, because they kind of do that invert and then motes thing? Is it possible that they turn to dust and float away and turn into, like, gas, basically? Or do you think it's an actual elimination of the matter from existence?
Yeah, I think it's a conversion to energy. situation.
Okay.
There's no matter left. Doesn't really make sense with the physics of the thing, because that would like blow the whole room up. But
Right.
whatever.
It's magic.
The whole beam of liquid fire thing is like, I think they're being vaporized down to the quarks.
Okay.
Or beyond. I mean, true negation would be just like an absolute 100% transfer to energy, right?
And that would be you're seeing the inverse energy, right? That cancels out everything in there.
Right. And the little motes are just kind of basically a visual artifact of that happening. I don't think there's actual dust. Because what would allow certain particles to get lit through and other particles to get destroyed? Like, it's not real fire. It's magic fire.
They speculate someone must have been a dark friend, and that was, of course, Elsa. There's some evidence that Shadar Haran was controlling her and working through her. And that evidence is Brandon Sanderson speaking, which I don't like that he talks about these books outside the books, but sometimes he says stuff like that. So...
Nah. You don't get to have the word of God now that you've put the pen down, sir.
Just like to bring it up for the people who care.
No, Elsa was a dark friend. She worked for Shadar Haran because dark friend oaths. That's all you need.
The trance is broken. The other two fall unconscious, so I guess they're just tired. But they seem to be fine. They seem to exist later on in the series and do stuff with other groups of Aes Sedai. Nothing I found that was particularly interesting on either of them.
They should have been, like, poison pilled somehow. That would have been smart. Manchurian candidate Aes Sedai.
So Rand's voice sounds cool, right? Because he's embraced the cold side of the power.
Yeah, he's got a strange, dark sort of serenity. That's not at all the serenity of someone who's channeling the power normally. He tells her, the danger has been dealt with. What the fuck are you doing here? It's very... The words are intense, but the tone is chill.
So he calls Narishma over, shows him Balefire, and basically says, share this. Anyway, this is how we're going to kill Forsaken. So this is a weapon we all need to have at our disposal. And he Balefires an old cloak or an old, what?
his coat. I think the coat that he was in, like, while he was killing men, he's just like, I have bad memories of that coat.
Yeah, no more.
Get rid of that coat. And Cadsuane tries to do her domineering, you can't do that. And Rand just, like, completely cuts her off, completely overrides her, like, this is what we gotta do in order to deal with the Forsaken. Otherwise, they keep coming back. I have decided it is not forbidden. Get with the program.
I feel like there's some symbolism in him destroying his coat, right? This whole, like, Rand's fancy red coat was this big deal. It was this big thing that he put on. This distinctive thing that made him, like, the hero that came through and became the emperor, right? Like, but that red coat was always identified him as, like, who he was. And so him destroying that with Balefires feels a very symbolic moment of destroying his past, destroying the innocent him who came up and was, thought he could do things the right way.
Well, and think also, too, like, Moraine put him in that coat.
Yeah.
And here he is cutting Cadsuane off. Right? Like, that coat was him accepting Aes Sedai management to some extent. And now he is completely not accepting Aes Sedai management whatsoever, while also kind of assigning it to himself, right? Because he has his first Lews Therin line here of being like, not first Lews Therin, but the first vibe of his integrated Lews Therin self of, if you call me a child, Cadsuane, then what are those of you who are thousands of years my junior? Right? Like, he says stuff like that after he goes Zen Rand. Like, this is part of where he's at now.
Yeah, he's remembering things. He's remembering the last battle. Or not the last battle. He's remembering the Battle of Power, right? The War of Power.
Yeah, he's remembering cities burned away by balefire. He's remembering the Forsaken's personal traits. He's like, Cadsuane, stop thinking that you know the most in the room. I know the most in the room. And he's right. But
he's threatening her with it, right? It's a different Rand who goes up and comes down and is like, no, I remember. I'm old. Yeah. I'm wise. Because here he has the memories of violence and trauma, but he's not old and wise, right? He hasn't experienced those things in the way that he does after he's integrated.
Well, he's also, like, so reactive here. He's very much still trying to prove something, whereas once he comes down from the mountain, he's solid in himself. He knows who he is and what he's doing, and he doesn't need to prove it to anyone because he knows. But right now, all he knows is the PTSD loops. There's really not even much of a P in that.
He brings up the box that the bracelets were stored in that also had the Choden Call stored in it, right? And there's a line. Did Althor now have the access key, or had the statuette been taken by Semirhage? And it's really important, right? It was not taken by Shadar Haran or Semirhage, right?
Right.
Rand has it.
It was left in the box in the room for Rand to pick up if and when he survived the encounter.
And the fact that could have been taken very easily by Shadar Haran tells you that the Dark One wants him to have the Chosen Call right now, which is terrifying.
Because you need that much oomph to destroy the world.
So then he accuses Cadsuane of, fucking it up, which she did, right? Like,
I don't know if there was anything that would have kept Shadar Haran out.
True, right. Yeah, it's like she doesn't have the skill. I don't know why she thought she could keep him out.
No one anticipated that Shadar Haran existed. Nobody knew that the Hand of the Dark was a factor to plan for. So I don't really blame her, because Shadar Haran can just wave his hand and make all weaves go poof if he wants. So is that what you think happened? Is that how you think he got in through the wards? Yeah. He poofed the weaves. He can just negation beam those things out of there. And like nobody knows that Shadar Haran exists except for like half the Forsaken. The other half don't even know, I think. So like, because he really does break the rules of reality, right? Like you shouldn't be able to poof wards. But like that's what's happening in the White Tower, that the wards aren't working anymore. That's what the Dark One can do. It's what is it? Grandal says the closest thing she holds to a sacred truth is that anything the Creator can make, the Dark One can unmake. Mm-hmm. That's what the Dark One does. So like, it's not Cadsuane's fault that she doesn't have like protection against that. Rand is being unreasonable, but nobody knows that Shadar Haran is a factor, right? Even in this, everyone assumes that it was all Semirhage that made this happen, and maybe there was a Dark Friend that helped, but no one's assuming that the Dark One has a whole other tier of monster to deploy. Mm-hmm. And then there's the whole you don't kill women. Actually, I just vaporized a couple of them, so look out. I have been forced to revise that particular inclination. I love it when people use big words to cover up how traumatized they are. And then this is great. I think this is one of the fan favorite moments when Rand just schools Cadsuane and puts her in her place using essentially his powers, right? Like, there's a lot of frustration with Cadsuane, I feel like, out there, and to him just be like, listen, Cadsuane, do you believe I could kill you right here, right now, without using a sword of the power? Do you believe that if I simply willed it, the pattern would bend around me and stop your heart by coincidence? And like, I think it's a famous moment, both because frustration with Cadsuane, but also because it's such a debatable point, right? Do you think he has that kind of control over the pattern? Do you think he has that kind of power? And I mean, the trippy thing about it is that, like, by framing it that way, you loop in the placebo effect, right? Like, if you believe that, it becomes like 50% more true just because of you. You yourself have now opened yourself up to that being true. It's a great, the top spinning at the end of Inception kind of like, And I think there's some truth to the fact that Rand is the balance for the Dark One. When he is in tune, when he is in balance, right? And the Dark One's putting his foot on the scale, Rand gains a lot of powers. Yeah. Yeah, when the Dark One affects the world, Rand necessarily gets powered up as well. And when Rand is out of balance, he, I think, causes bad things to happen. He doesn't balance out the Dark One. And so there's this moment where, they're like, oh, all those bad things are happening. Those weird, outlandish things are happening around Rand. But what about the good ones? And they go, no, there are no more good ones, right? There are no more good random things happening around Rand until he goes up to Veins of Gold and rebalances himself, because he's fully being corrupted by the Dark One at this point. Right, and then after that, he's doing nothing but good stuff wherever he goes, because that's how balance gets brought to everything. Right, because he's balancing out the Dark One, who's putting his foot on the scale. Right. Rand has no powers if the Dark One isn't free in that situation, right? Because he's balancing out, at least the Taviran part of him, right? That's why, for most of the series, all the extreme chances to him happen in balance. When good things happen, bad things also happen. But now that the Dark One's free, it's not in balance anymore. And Rand's not in balance. Right. And I do think that there is something to him being able to direct his will to this point, because it does help Curb get the words Anatran Sparrow out after Nynaeve, lobotomizes him post Grandal. Like, clearly Rand is able to exercise some kind of force because he's leaning in, right? I mean, we've known this about Tavir and Fate for a long time. If you fight it, you have no control. If you lean in, you get the tiniest little bit of control.
That's why Matt leans into his luck and he gets some control over that. That's when Rand really wants people to do the things that he needs them to do. He gets them to say and do things that they wouldn't normally do. It's why Perrin is able to be a leader, even though he's a terrible leader, and get a bunch of people behind him.
Yeah, Perrin doesn't really lean in, but once he does, man, things go really well for him.
Exactly.
Like, stupidly well. The second he decides to lean in, bam, 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 everything works.
Once he decides he's an actual anime character, like, he really gets those teleportation powers quick.
Yeah. And so, short of Cadsuane's heart stopping, Rand simply exiles her from his sight. He very specifically says, "Never let me see your face again." She Aes Sedai lawyers it, and he allows it later on. But the point is, he needs some space. He needs space. He's feeling a little confined.
But this idea that he doesn't have emotions is ridiculous. He is completely trapped by his emotions in the later chapters and completely affected by them.
Yeah.
Like, he's not done with his emotions at all.
In every sense of the word, he has not done his shadow work. He has not beaten the shadow, quite literally, nor has he dealt with any of his internal trauma and drama.
So yeah, we see the darkness emanating from him out of the corner of her eye, which I think is the connection to the Dark One. The channeling of the true power has affected him.
Right, and Nynaeve sees it too later, only out of the corner of her eye. I think it's definitely like a passive sensing ability that channelers have.
Same thing here with Cadsuane, where she's only seeing it out of the corner of her eye. Could also be an effect of one of the Paralis Net on Grial, because both of them have it, if Nynaeve and Cadsuane.
Yeah.
We'll see if anybody else sees it, but...
Yeah, I don't know. Or maybe it's only like really powerful channelers have that level of like detect threshold. Yeah, that's basically all I got.
Mm-hmm. "Prepare yourself and your armies," Althor said to those who remained, voice echoing in the room behind. "I intend to be gone by week's end." Cadsuane raised a hand to her head and leaned against the hallway outside. The hallway wall outside. Heart thumping, hands sweating. Before, she had been working against a stubborn but good-hearted boy. Someone had taken that child and replaced him with a man more dangerous than any she had ever met. Day by day, he was slipping away from them, and at the moment, she hadn't a blasted clue what to do about it.
Go get his dad. His dad will talk some sense into him. Actually, he won't. His will just trigger a breakdown.
Well, yeah, right. But in this case, he respects his father.
Yeah. You need to get an adultier adult that he actually respects. And I would argue that Tam is, in fact, an adultier adult. He puts Cadsuane in her place in a way that only Sora Leah could have done before. So, and yeah, that's the chapter.
And that was a super short chapter.
So short. Yeah, I'm glad we bundled those together. It really is just the epilogue to the first chapter.
But yeah, I think that's all I had to say about that one. That was fun. That's such a good... I like that chapter a lot.
Yeah, I do like that event. It has a lot of... Like, the way it concludes with the exile reminds me a lot of Dumai's Wells with, like, kneel or you shall be knelt. Like, you just feel this awful and terrible threshold getting crossed.
Yes.
There's nothing you can do about it. Like, oh, no, we're entering a new paradigm of bad things.
Because, like, he's using the true power, right? And that's just so ominous and so bad.
Yeah, and going against a vision of Min's, right? To exile Cadsuane is to say Min's vision doesn't hold weight, which makes sense because he just was like, "Hey, Min, I'm going to be friendly. Oh no, now I have to be terrible." Like, he's now rejecting Min's vision advice as well as her love.
Right. That's a good point. Yeah, because that whole reason he kept Cadsuane around is because he believed in Min's vision, and now he's like, "No, whatever. If it happens, it happens, but I'm not worrying about it."
Yeah, it's a paradigm shift. Rand is... beyond Darth at this point. Or Darth is only just now kicking in and we've been mislabeling it before. I don't know. Either way, the nomenclature has to upgrade.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Ebony. Ebony Rand. I don't know. I'm trying to think of something that's darker.
Yeah, I don't. Black Hole Rand, Event Horizon Rand.
If you've read the Dark Jewels trilogy, Ebony is blacker than black in that series. So that's sort of where my mind went. But that is a niche fantasy series for those of you who read it.
I was just watching some cool YouTube videos about black holes last night, so that's definitely where my mind is at. Well, black holes are black, you know. It's like, well, they're not really black. They're holes. It's blacker than black. Black is a color. This is absence. That's what a black hole is. But, you know, it was actually science stuff about the accretion ring and the emissions that it was putting off.
Which is actually one of the brightest things in the universe, which is really funny. You have a black hole right next to often one of the brightest things in the universe, and they're usually very, very close together.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was actually really cool. It was a video about our Milky Way, or our black hole, the center of the Milky Way. It's like been some really epic imaging from JWST specifically, actually looking directly at our Sagittarius A star and seeing the flares coming off of it. And it's so wild that we can do that. It's really, really cool. Really neat science. Can you hear that fucking phone call coming in?
Just barely, yeah. All right, I think that's all I got.
We'll be back next week for another double or triple header. Continuing to do support group on Thursdays. The TV show does premiere this month on March 13th. That's very exciting.
High hopes for season 3, I guess.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm very excited. I'm very much enjoying all the people who are engaging with the pre-release hype. I am not personally engaging with the pre-release hype directly, but I'm very much enjoying the secondary hype that's rolling off of all the people who are. That's great. I'm basking in that.
And guess what we do in 2 weeks?
What?
Hinder's Tap.
Oh, that's exciting. That's very exciting.
So yeah, can't wait to do that. Can't wait to see you guys next week and the week after.
Yeah, everyone, keep coming back for more exciting Gathering Storm chapters. We are definitely getting closer and closer to the Sanderlanche. So,
yeah.
You know, now's a good time to tune in.
Yeah, I would say that certainly calls the beginning of the Sanderlanche, right? And we got a little bit of a lull, and then we're just Hinder's Tap, and from then on out, it's just bang, 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 right up until Veins of Gold.
Very exciting. Very exciting. Well, thank you everyone for showing up today. Really appreciate it. And thank you everyone out there for listening and donating and sharing and engaging in all the ways that you do. It's fantastic. And yeah, see you next week.
See you next week. Either way, you know, the recording will sound great. It's just whether or not the few live people get to hear robotic Aradia.
And hopefully it'll sound better than last time I was here, because I'm actually using a USB mic instead of my Bluetooth headphones. So. Yeah,
Bluetooth is always a little sketchy to record over.
Yeah, I just forgot to bring the USB mic last time because I was working. Just whatever. Technology on the go is a pain.
I mean, technology at home is a pain. Today I had about a 40-minute scare. I sat down early for once, got my notes ready, and I was like, why can't I hear anything through the microphone? I can hear myself through the microphone, and it's powered, but the computer's not communicating with it. Diagnosing, reinstalling software, trying drivers. It just says it's not connected, but it's getting power. Can't tell. Finally replace the cord. Everything starts working. And I start tracing the old cord. And what do I find about, 3 chords? It's a long cord, and it's like in channels and stuff like that. There's some cat tooth marks in one of the, not puppy tooth. Good guess, wow. Little Jin, but actual. This is the Chef is a cord chewer. He likes to When he gets frustrated that no one's paying attention to him, he knows we don't like it when we choose chords, and he punishes us by finding a chord and chewing it. So every once in a while, it's not very often, but once every couple of weeks, I go to use a chord and charge something, and it doesn't work, and I follow it along and go, yep, there are the teeth marks.
I'm offended, Chef, because I put your cute little cat snores at the beginning of the last recording for everyone to hear before anything else happened. There was cute little cat snores. And how have you repaid us? Ungrateful.
He probably woke up and had a snack. That's what I'm saying. But yeah, so that cord has been replaced, and everything should be working good.
Good.
But yeah, other than that, things are going good. Puppy update. He is getting better by the day. Still lots of energy. Still wants to play all the time, but no more real accidents inside. Well, not many more accidents inside. No more nipping and biting. Much more calm around other people. Very good on walks. We've taken him to the dog park. He's been great off leash. Ooh. He's played great with other dogs, and he's done the thing that I really appreciate where he's matched the other dog energy. If the other dog is like, mouth open, jumping, playing, he does that. If the other dog is more of a chase dog, he does that. If they're more of a calm dog, he does that. He'll like turn his butt towards them. The one thing he'll do is like knock over the calm dogs with his butt to try and get him to play with him a little bit. He kind of gives him the butt and then runs away a little bit. And I'm like, come on, man, let's settle down a little bit. But so far, no humping, no aggressive behavior, no frightened behavior. Yeah, no, I've been really, really happy with how he's doing so far. Terrible recall. Absolutely terrible recall. So that is something that we need to train. He doesn't run away from me. He just doesn't really come to me unless he wants to. Fortunately, there is a fully fenced off-leash dog park minutes away from where I'm currently living. So we're getting all of that training done, and we're working on the recall. It is one of the, I won't say it's the harder, but it's getting the circumstances right to train it is kind of hard. We have a long leash, and I need a space where there's not a lot of other dogs to start training the recall. So we're working on it. There's lots of training going on. We can't train everything all in the same first, we're at 6 weeks now. So
right, yeah. No, there's a progression. You're going to have to work iteratively through the to-do list.
Exactly. And because we didn't get him as a young puppy, we got him at 8 months. There's some bad habits that we had to unteach him with. Unfortunately, we did have to resort to a spray bottle for a couple of his behaviors because I wouldn't normally do that with a young puppy, but he's old enough now that he's learned the behavior, and there has to be some sort of like way to, besides just yelling no at him, because then he's just like starts barking because he thinks we're all barking together.
Right. Yeah. You need actual negative feedback that he sees as negative.
Which is unfortunate because I try not to use negative feedback, but there's, a little bit of a spray bottle when he's, harassing the cat or chewing on furniture.
A spray bottle it's a harmless enough deterrent for these are actual problem behaviors.
Right.
Hitting is never good. Yelling is middling effective, but a spray bottle, very effective, and it does no harm at all. It's just water.
No. And now I just get up and go pick up the spray bottle and he stops whatever he's doing. I haven't had to spray him since day 2.
No, I had cats who were sprayed a lot, and you could just make finger guns and a spray noise at them and they would move. They knew. They didn't want to wait around for the actual to test if there was water or not.
But other than that, mostly positive reinforcement, and he's been doing great. But boy, his personality's coming out, and he's got one for sure. I'll update you on that more as it happens.
That's awesome.
But 6 weeks is still pretty early, pretty quick. He's mostly in his fear response, and then sort of just settling in. And is this normal response? I think one of the biggest helps has been doing a walk that's just the same every day.
Routine.
Yeah, routine's the biggest help for sure. Sorry, I can talk about the dogs all day. Love the dogs.
I do not yet have a dog, though Brandon has officially sent me a picture from a local business that has a foster in the lobby of the business for the day to try to get people to adopt sort of things. And he's like, hey, look at this one. This one's really cute. I'm not saying we should get him, but he looks really cute. And I'm like, so it begins. Yeah, the most responsibility I have for anything right now is we put garlic in the ground over the weekend. And some kale.
Sweet.
It's time to start trying to garden for the year.
It's time to kill some plants before you figure out when it's actually time to plant.
Well, garlic and kale are both plants that ostensibly you can basically grow year round.
That's true.
Where we are. So, we're trying to get a go at that, get started on it, because we eat a lot of garlic. Like so much garlic, and it's supposed to be really easy to grow. And then we had store garlic that was all sprouting. So it's like, all right, fine, go in the ground, do something useful with yourselves. And yeah, we're trying really hard to get some more serious gardening happening this year. Cause, gardening seems like a practical thing to really be cranking up at this point in the timeline.
I, put some kale in the ground when I first moved to Portland, and was quickly overwhelmed by the amount of greens I had to eat. It was so much all the time, constantly.
Yeah, dark leafy greens love this climate.
Plants. Yeah, they're just like, woo, let's grow.
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Please rate and review us on your podcast app, and consider supporting us on Patreon for ad-free episodes. What Spoilers is a production of Fox and Raven Media. For more podcasts from Fox and Raven Media, visit our website at foxandravenmedia.com.